We've all been there, right? A critical VMware system goes down. The pressure is on, alarms are blaring, users are calling, and you're right in the middle of it all. It can feel like pure chaos. But what if you had a clear, repeatable mental model to cut through that noise every single time? Well, that's exactly what we're going to build right now. This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? That sinking feeling when you're just staring at a red screen. Look, the difference between a panicked, frantic search and a calm, methodical diagnosis, it isn't about knowing every single error code by heart. It's about having a disciplined place to start. And that's really the heart of it. We're going to move from just reactively fixing things to proactively solving problems by building a mental toolkit, a framework that helps you turn messy, confusing symptoms into a clean root cause and, ultimately a safe fix. Okay, so every good journey needs a map. For troubleshooting, our map is all about categorizing the problem right away. Instead of staring at 100 possibilities, we're going to start with just 5 fundamental areas where pretty much every issue lives. The first step is always the same, and it's surprisingly simple. Before you even think about touching a log file, you just classify the problem. Ask yourself, is this a new deployment that's failing? Is a cluster acting up? Is it a license thing? Or is it a problem with the classic trio, compute, storage, or networking? Or hey, maybe the operations tool itself is what's broken. Just making this first decision is half the battle. So let's break them down real quick. Deployment and upgrade, well, that's for failures during install or updates. Clusters covers things like availability and scheduling problems. License management is when features suddenly vanish or you get those dreaded compliance warnings. Then you've got compute, storage, and networks, your classic workload performance stuff. And finally, operations and automation is when your monitoring or orchestration tools are on the fritz. Knowing which bucket you're in brings instant clarity. All right, so we have our map. We know what territory we're in. Now we need a compass, a totally dependable, repeatable process to find our way through it. And it's a really simple 3-step flow. First, describe the symptom with precision. I don't mean just it's broken. I mean, who is affected? What are they seeing? Where is it happening? And since when? Second, you have to decide, is this a management issue, what we call the control plane, or is it about the actual workload traffic, the data plane? And third, your goal is to find the very first thing in the chain that's actually failing. Understanding the split between the control plane and data plane is absolutely crucial. Think of the control plane as the management brain, logging in a vCenter, running API tasks, just seeing your inventory. The data plane, on the other hand, is the workhorse. It's the actual VM traffic. It's vMotion. It's storage I/O. So the question is, are you having trouble managing the system, or is the system having trouble doing its job? That distinction will guide you better than almost anything else. And that leads us straight to this idea of the first failing hop. This is the real key to being efficient. You're not just chasing a bunch of downstream alerts or symptoms. You are looking for the root cause, the very first domino in the chain that fell over. Because if you fix that, a lot of times all the other alarms just vanish. So once you have this map and this compass, you start to see the landscape a little differently. You begin to recognize these predictable patterns, and that lets you shortcut your diagnosis and get to the root cause way, way faster. For instance, a deployment issue, it's often not the installer itself. It's usually fundamental services like DNS, NTP, or certificates. See a vSAN alarm? So often that has its roots in a network consistency problem. Got a cluster that's acting up? Ask yourself, is it just one host, which suggests configuration drift? Or is it all the hosts, which points to a shared problem like storage or networking? These patterns are your expert intuition starting to kick in. Now, knowing what to do is important, but knowing what not to do is just as critical. There are these common traps that even the most seasoned pros fall into, and just being able to recognize them is half the battle. Ooh, I love this one, because we've all said it. We get a ping response, and we think, okay, networking's good. But honestly, this is one of the most dangerous assumptions you can make in troubleshooting. It's such a classic trap. And here's why that assumption is so flawed. A simple ping that just uses the management network. But what about your vMotion traffic? Or your vSAN traffic? These are totally different traffic types, often with different VLANs, different MTU sizes, and different network paths. They can, and they absolutely do, fail completely independently of each other. A working ping only tells you one tiny little piece of the story. Here's another common point of confusion. Let's say a feature is grayed out in the user interface. Is that a permissions issue, a license issue, or some kind of connectivity problem? Well, there's a pretty simple way to tell. If it affects just one user, it's probably a role-based access control, or RBAC problem. If it affects everyone, you should probably check the license. And if the data just looks kind of stale or inconsistent, it's almost certainly a connectivity issue, where the system can't talk to something it needs to. And let's not forget these other classics. Chasing a network problem when the error log is screaming about a certificate trust issue. Forgetting to ask the single most important question in all of IT. What changed last? And of course, the biggest trap of all, guessing. Your logs and metrics are your evidence. You gotta use them. Okay, let's bring all this together. We've got our map, we've got our compass, and we have a list of traps to avoid. This whole framework, this is the path from being a reactive fixer to becoming that go-to troubleshooting expert on your team. And that really is the big takeaway here. This stuff isn't magic. It's not some innate talent you're born with. It's a skill you build. It's all about applying a disciplined mental model consistently, especially under pressure, until it just becomes second nature. It's a process that anyone can learn. So if you don't remember anything else, remember this 3-part mantra. 1, classify the problem. Put it in its bucket. 2, find the first failing hop. And 3, always, always, always verify the fundamentals. I'm talking name resolution, time sync, and basic connectivity for the correct type of traffic. So I'll just leave you with this thought. The next time that alarm goes off and the pressure starts to mount, you have a framework now. You have a map and a compass. So, what's the first discipline question you're going to ask to turn all that chaos into clarity?